So today I wanted to talk about Taylor Swift, why she's chart obsessed, and I'm going to give you examples of this. This is not my first time talking about this. I've talked about it in little bits before, but I just have to make a whole video because I've had it. I read this on Twitter the other day. Taylor Swift has released two new versions of the Tortured Poets Department with acoustic versions of Fresh Out the Slammer and Fortnite. That makes 34 different versions of the album. At this point, Taylor, give it to God. Give it to God. I know your fans are going to buy the album. I'm a Taylor Swift fan. Let me say that before I get into everything else, because I know the Swifties are going to be in my comments. She is one of my favorite artists. I think that she's talented. I can hold her accountable at the same time. But 34 versions of the same album. Are you joking? Are you joking? It's worth noting that for the Tortured Poets Department, what Taylor Swift did is that she gave us 16 songs originally. We knew that that was coming. And then a few hours later, she releases 16 more songs, the anthology version. And so she did the same thing for Midnights. We got 13 songs, and then she released 7 other songs in the middle of the night and called it the 3 tracks. Is it nice to have new music? Yes, but I can see exactly what she's trying to do because she's trying to get more album sales and more album streams for the Billboard 200 chart. And so at a certain point, it's just so easy to see right through Taylor Swift. And some people are really frustrated because they had already pre-ordered the album and maybe they've even bought it digitally and now releasing a whole other version of the album. So if they want the extra tracks physically, then they have to buy an album again that you just released. And so it's one thing to wait a few weeks to release it. It's another thing to like just do what Taylor Swift does, because you know that you're gonna have fans who do that, and fans are just getting frustrated by that. And of course she's gonna release more physical versions of it so people can buy that as well. And I don't understand this. And Taylor Swift was going to release another physical version of the Midnights album. I don't know why she never released an album with the 3 tracks, because that's what everybody was asking for. The one time people asked you to release something, you didn't, but you did that. So that's something else I have to add to the conversation as well. So this is the start, okay? And then there's so much more to even get into. charlixcx has released her new album, Brat. It's getting a lot of positive reviews. It was set for a #1 debut in the UK. Taylor Swift decides to release new versions of her album and first draft phone memos for UK fans. It's literally a UK exclusive. Someone else finally getting #1, and what does Taylor Swift do? Let me release a billion more versions of my album. And so this isn't even the first time it's seeming like she's trying to have that #1 and basically block somebody else to get it. You know, part of me is like, did she intentionally try to block her with it? I don't know. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she just wanted #1 and then she just released her album. Maybe it was a timing thing. I don't know. But this is just the first thing that I wanted to talk about, and it gets worse. Earlier this year, Billie Eilish did an interview and she told Billboard why she uses recycled material for her vinyls. Says some of the biggest artists in the world are releasing several different vinyl versions for numbers of money. I can't even express to you how wasteful it is. It is right in front of our faces and people are just getting away with it left and right. And I find it really frustrating as somebody who really goes out of my way to be sustainable and do the best that I can and try to involve everybody in my team in being sustainable. And then it's some of the biggest artists in the world making fucking 40 different vinyl packages and have a different unique thing just to get you to keep buying more. It's so wasteful, and it's irritating to me that we're still at a point where you care that much about your numbers and you care that much about making money. And it's all your favorite artists doing that shit. So Billie got a lot of backlash for this. People thought she was talking about Taylor Swift specifically. On her Instagram story, she said, okay, so it'd be awesome if people would stop putting words into my mouth and actually read what I said in that Billboard article. She wrote in a statement posted to her Instagram story, so that was her response. On Billie's album release day, Taylor released more versions of her album, The Tortured Poets Department, with more voice memos. And so someone quote retweeted it and just said, like, it's a messed up thing to do. And so maybe she did it because of Billie. That's what it's given, just because that's when her album releases, so the timing is really suspicious. And one thing about Taylor Swift is she's really petty, because you have to remember, whenever Katy Perry released Witness, Taylor Swift re-released her entire discography onto Spotify. So I don't really put it past her. So, you know, that's one part of it. Might get the timeline murky, but she released a new version of Fortnite, so she got controversy for that as well. Billie Eilish posted on her Instagram story showing Kim reposting her merch, and we know that Kim and Taylor have beef. Apparently, Billie Eilish's manager was liking and retweeting tweets saying that Taylor had a history of intentionally blocking other artists, and so there was that moment. Billie and Phineas were on a station head, and this one fan was talking about, oh, I bought your album 5 times, and Phineas was like, you don't need to buy the album anymore, and she was like, keep buying the album, because her and Taylor Swift were in the battle to go #1, basically, and I believe this was like the last tracking day or something like that. It was really close. And then this is like basically the same day as what I just shared with you. So they tried to make it seem like Billie was shading Beyonce and she was shading Taylor Swift when Billie wasn't. She was talking about for her specific show. Okay, so they were trying to make Billie look bad, and Billie loves Beyonce. She doesn't have any beef with her, so she would not trying to be shade Beyonce or whatever. So I think that was stupid. But she basically said, doing a 3 hour show, that's really psychotic. No one wants that. You guys don't want that. I don't want that. I don't even want that as a fan. Even my favorite artists, I'm not trying to hear them for 3 hours. That's far too long. That's literally psychotic. So again, she was saying that in context of herself. And then of course this Taylor Swift updated account is going to post it because her and Billie were beefing at the time because of whatever. They thought it was about Taylor Swift and they're going to try to stir the pot. But she wasn't really trying to talk about them, I don't think. Ultimately, Billie Eilish's album would end up debuting at number 2 on Billboard, and she sold over 300,000 copies. So, good for her, good for her. Yeah, she had other versions of her albums and stuff. Did she have as many as Taylor Swift? No. So, we can have that. But, I mean, number 2 album on Billboard over 300K sold, that's nothing to scoff at, especially now, because people don't sell now. I can't forget whenever SZA SOS album dropped, and then, of course, Taylor was trying to release more versions to go number 1. And her fans were so racist to SZA, it's actually ridiculous. And SZA was way better than Taylor because at least she told her fans, hey, stop saying all that stuff and whatever. And Taylor posted some stuff about, oh, I'm loving the new album and all that stuff. I don't think she told her stans to stop harassing SZA. I don't think that happened. If that did, let me know. I will stand corrected. But I mean, SZA did more than Taylor. Keep in mind, this is just the Billboard 200 chart, the albums chart. And Taylor Swift does really well on the Billboard 200 on her own. But she wants to have all these extra weeks at number 1. So she's going to release 80 billion versions of her album. And if people want to buy it, then they want to buy it. She has a fan base. We all know that, of course. And so we keep in mind this album charts. And so now let's go on to some stuff for the Billboard Hot 100. Taylor Swift released 10 versions of Anti-Hero. An original mix, an acoustic version, an instrumental version, the Bleachers versions, explicit and clean, the 4 remixes, and an extended Kung's remix. I literally remember this. At the beginning, it didn't bother me as much because she was blocking Drake, and I hate Drake. But whenever it started getting Christmas time, you're still releasing all these versions of the song, and it killed me because you're releasing remixes of the song to keep it at number 1. If you're trying to get the song number 1, okay, fine, whatever. But to keep a song that already went number 1, and you're trying to have it there. I just thought that it was so stupid. 10 versions of one song. Let's be serious. The Evermore era, she discounted Willow to be 39 cents. And yeah, she had versions of that as well. She had versions of All Too Well whenever she had released that to get that to have its moment and be at number 1. And so Willow marks the biggest fall from a number 1 in history. I think it was number 1. It went to 39 because it was released during the Christmas time. So wrapping up my thoughts on this because there's going to be a lot of different opinions. So yes, she can release multiple versions of everything. Do I have a right to say how I feel about it? Absolutely. And if you disagree with me, that's absolutely fine. And I think it's one thing to release a deluxe version of an album, maybe a remix album, but when you're giving me 34 versions of the same album, that is something that I'm going to have a problem with, And even with the SZA thing, it was she was giving voice memos of songs that she basically already did on the radio. You could already hear them. So you're selling people stuff that they basically already heard. So that was a problem with me. And so we're definitely going too far. Yes, she has a fan base that wants to buy those things. If they buy it, it's their choice, And I basically saw a tweet saying oh, if your fave can't automatically go number 1 basically and Taylor Swift can, just do that and block them, then you need to go stream the album and whatever. So there's that perspective to have on it as well. With the song thing, I'm fine with, a few remixes. I think when we get to 10 remixes, it is a problem. And that's why I had to show you guys multiple examples of Billboard Hot 100 and Billboard 200 because I'm trying to show you that this is a pattern for Taylor Swift. If she did it a one-off time, then that's one thing. But when you consistently do this, it's something that I'm going to turn my head at because Taylor Swift is acting like she's an indie artist. She is the biggest artist in the world right now. Her last album had over 200 million streams first day, something like that, which is absolutely insane. So you're definitely not hurting for money. You're not hurting for streams. And at a certain point, it's definitely giving she's become so chart obsessed. And with all these examples, you can't deny it no more. I am sorry. Is she the first artist to release a remix or an extra version of the album? No, and she certainly won't be the last. But the degree of which she is doing it at and the frequency at which she's doing it and all these circumstances, it's getting weird. I'm sorry, it's getting weird. And this is something that I called her out for before, and I have to do it again because she keeps doing this and it keeps getting worse. 34 versions of an album. I said it multiple times, but this is what I keep getting back to. And it just seems like a lot of times for artists, you want to have those chart achievements and stuff like that. My album was number one for this many weeks, it sold this many copies, and it's cool to have those things. But at a certain point, it's not organic, because don't release 34 versions of the album next week and we'll see where it's at. It could be at number one because people are still streaming and buying the album. I would definitely say that she has people supporting it, but it's just inorganic. It is just something that is wreaking desperation, with her being as popular as she is, and it's just getting weird. Let other artists have their weeks at number one. You already had your weeks at number one, and then we move on. And as she keeps releasing more songs and more albums, we're gonna go through this. We have the versions of Fortnite already. She'll probably release more versions of that, more audio memos, and if she doesn't have them, then she'll just make them up. I mean, that's what I think. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comments on this. I'm sure I'll have swifties in my comments and people disagreeing with me. But I think when we get to this point, it's bad. And I get caring about your music doing well, but there's a way to do it, and this way just isn't it. So let's continue that conversation.